The palace clock had barely ticked past the hour when an official communique jolted the nation. In 7 chilling minutes, what was once whispered behind palace doors erupted into public tragedy. The subject, Prince Louis, the impact, a royal mother brought to her knees. Catherine's tears weren't the only thing flowing, so were questions, panic, and a desperate search for answers. What could be so devastating that it would shake the very foundations of the House of Windsor? Because this wasn't the kind of palace announcement that arrives with ceremony or reassurance. This was the kind that lands like a cold hand on the nation's throat, short, controlled, painfully careful with every word, the kind of statement that doesn't explain, it warns. And almost immediately, the royal machine did what it always does in moments like this. It tried to stay calm, it tried to keep the message tight, it tried to protect the crown from panic. But the public wasn't calm. The phrase tragic news didn't just raise eyebrows, it detonated them. Those 2 words stamped in official language carry a weight the monarchy never uses lightly. That wording is reserved for moments they can't soften, moments they can't hide, moments where even silence becomes dangerous. Before we continue, please kindly subscribe. We are on a journey to reach 1,000 subscribers in less than 2 weeks, and we're counting on you. Like, comment, and hit on the notification bell. Within minutes, every major newsroom shifted into emergency mode. Producers started calling contacts they hadn't spoken to in years. Royal correspondents began walking fast, speaking faster, and refusing to go on record. And suddenly, the question wasn't if something happened, it was how bad is it, and how long have they known? Because the palace statement didn't arrive out of nowhere. It collided with something people had already started noticing, something unsettling that didn't match the official narrative. Hours earlier, Catherine had been seen leaving Kensington, not with her usual composed stride, but with a face that looked unfamiliar. Her eyes weren't just tired, they looked wounded. And those closest to the royal household noticed something chilling. She wasn't surrounded by the usual calm formation of staff. The usual choreography was missing. The quiet perfection of royal routine had slipped. For a woman trained to survive the world's scrutiny with poise, it was a crack so loud it felt like a scream. And that's when the whispers began. Some claimed it was illness, a sudden medical emergency that forced doctors into immediate action. Others insisted it was an accident, something that happened without warning, without time to prepare, without room to control the narrative. But the most terrifying theory of all, that this wasn't new. That this was something the palace had been fighting to contain for a long time until it finally broke free. Because the monarchy doesn't confirm tragic news unless it has no choice. The royal family has survived scandals, betrayals, separations, even national outrage, and still managed to wrap it all in silence. So when they choose to speak like this, it means the truth is already spilling out somewhere through staff, through insiders, through the kind of private panic that can't be cleaned up with press releases. And across social media, the reaction erupted like wildfire. Number Pray for Louis began trending faster than anyone expected. People weren't just posting sympathy, they were posting fear. Parents, grandparents, supporters, watching every past clip of Louis with new eyes, replaying every moment, searching for signs. Was he quiet in that appearance? Was he tired? Was that smile forced? Everyone suddenly became a detective, not because they wanted drama, but because they felt something deeply wrong hiding underneath the palace's calm. And in the middle of it all was Catherine. Not the future queen, not the royal icon, not the perfectly polished figure the world thinks it knows. Just a mother facing something that no title can protect you from. Because if this tragic news is what it sounds like, then Catherine isn't crying for the cameras. She's crying because something is happening to her child. And the palace knows the world is about to find out. But behind the palace's carefully worded release lies a web of secrecy. And the real story begins far from the spotlight, in a hidden chapter of Louis's life that the monarchy fought desperately to keep buried. For years, Princess Catherine wore her signature smile as armor, but behind the radiant public image was a mother battling a silent storm. Few knew of the quiet hospital visits. Even fewer understood the fear behind her protective gaze toward Louie. The truth, a diagnosis kept under royal wraps until now. What appeared on the surface as a normal, lively royal upbringing was quietly overshadowed by private concerns Catherine never shared publicly. From Louis's earliest milestones, there were subtle signs: delays in speech, inconsistencies in motor coordination, gentle nudges from royal nannies, politely suggesting further evaluation. But it was Catherine, ever instinctive, ever attuned, who saw what others dismissed. Behind the palace walls, she initiated the first of many consultations, quiet anonymous visits to specialized clinics. International experts flown in under aliases, neurological assessments, developmental screenings. It wasn't just precaution, it was desperation cloaked in calm. And yet, Catherine refused to let anyone else take control. While tradition dictated a network of royal aides to manage every medical and personal detail, she didn't trust protocol with Louie. Not this time, not her youngest. She insisted on being there every step, every test, every tear. Her schedule shifted quietly, engagements subtly, music cancelled, smile never wavering. It became clear to those within the tightest inner circle that this was not an ordinary health concern. The questions weren't about healing. They were about coping, managing, preparing, and perhaps most disturbingly, accepting. Even Queen Elizabeth in her final months was quietly made aware of the situation. Her reaction, a single phrase, spoken with chilling gravity: protect the child, but protect the crown too. That message wasn't just a warning. It was a royal directive, and it placed Charles in a position he had long dreaded, choosing transparency or tradition. Within the tight walls of Kensington, the emotional toll on William and Catherine deepened. As Louis' condition grew clearer in private, so did the divide in how to manage it. William, ever mindful of legacy, urged caution. Catherine, driven by maternal instinct, wanted honesty, even if that meant scrutiny. Arguments became frequent, sharp words spoken behind locked doors. Catherine accused William of fearing public weakness. William countered that she didn't understand the fragility of the monarchy, and all the while, Louis remained unaware. Innocent, smiling, laughing, drawing, living his childhood as if the storm didn't swirl around him. The pressure cooker tightened with every passing month, and yet the public never saw the fractures. Catherine held every appearance with practiced grace. She guarded her son's secret with the precision of a sovereign and the love of a mother who knew the world might not be kind to him if the truth got out. Because the decision to hide Louis's condition wasn't just about privacy, it was about preservation. Catherine believed with all her heart that her son deserved a normal life. One not defined by his diagnosis, not dictated by royal obligations. She didn't want the headlines, she didn't want the whispers, she wanted Louie to be Louis, and so a decision was made. A dangerous one, a royal one: keep it hidden, keep it quiet. Maintain the illusion, not for power but for normally, but no secret stays buried forever. And when one tragic incident broke the silence, the royal facade cracked in full public view. It happened at a private estate away from the cameras. But the consequences thundered across the monarchy like a war drum. A sudden collapse, a medical airlift, and a family pushed into chaos. The moment they feared had arrived, and there was no more hiding Louis from the world. The royal family had retreated to their countryside haven in hopes of brief serenity. No staff beyond essentials, no engagement scheduled. It was meant to be quiet, peaceful, ordinary, but in a single terrifying moment, everything changed. Louis, who had been playing nearby, suddenly froze, then stumbled, then fell. He didn't get up. Panic erupted immediately. Catherine was the first to reach him. Her scream, reportedly heard echoing across the fields. Within moments, emergency protocols kicked in. Royal protection officers trained for every kind of political threat stood helpless as they radioed in for a medical helicopter. This wasn't a security breach. It was something far worse. It was the collapse of a child they had been told to protect at all costs. William, visibly shaken, carried Louie himself to the awaiting emergency crew. Paramedics, already briefed on the potential risks, moved quickly, but their concern showed, and their silence during the liftoff spoke louder than any siren. George and Charlotte, unaware at first, were swiftly removed from the estate by a secondary team. Their faces reportedly pale, their questions met with practiced but hollow reassurances. They knew something was wrong, they could feel it. As for Catherine, she broke right there in the open. For the first time in decades, a future queen lost all composure. Witnesses say she dropped to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, whispering Louie's name as the air ambulance disappeared into the sky. And while the public had no knowledge yet of the unfolding chaos, the Crown's internal command system went into high alert. Every hospital staff member who came in contact with Prince Louie was bound under an emergency monarch red. Order and ultra-rare protocol only activated in situations deemed critical to national security or royal succession. That classification alone sent shock waves through the palace infrastructure because Monarch Red isn't issued for minor injuries. It's not even issued for serious illnesses. It's reserved for the kind of event that can shift the perception of the monarchy overnight. An event that demands complete control of information, access, and optics. The internal reports began filtering upward. Words like unresponsive, neurological, and unknown cause began to appear in encrypted summaries sent to royal handlers. Senior advisors called emergency meetings, and the whispers that had plagued Louis' name for years were no longer whispers. They were alarms, loud, real, and utterly unavoidable. The monarchy was no longer in control of the story. It was in the middle of a crisis it couldn't contain. And this time, no amount of protocol, no carefully crafted narrative, could undo the reality that a child, the Crown's youngest face, was now the subject of national concern and global scrutiny. As the world speculated and insiders panicked, King Charles was forced to make an impossible decision, and it involved confronting truths long ignored. When the monarch summons an emergency council after midnight, something is deeply wrong. Sources confirm King Charles ordered every senior advisor to convene his tone, reportedly cold and resolute. This was no longer just a family matter. It was a national security risk, and Charles, he was done waiting. The call reached Charles while he was mid-sentence, addressing a formal delegation abroad. An aide stepped forward, whispered into his ear, and the king's expression reportedly shifted from composed to thunderous in seconds. The speech was cut short. The formalities were abandoned. Within 90 minutes, the king was back on UK soil. His jet rerouted under a discreet royal code, only used in wartime or personal emergencies involving heirs to the throne. As Charles landed, Kensington was already in chaos. Royal communications were scrambling to control the narrative, but nothing was holding. Reporters camped outside hospitals. The Monarch Red breach had triggered an intelligence-level response, and worse, inside the palace, the family was fracturing. The first sign that this meeting would be unlike any before came in the form of a silence. Camilla was not summoned. No explanation, no courtesy note, no inclusion, a deliberate decision. Charles had made this crisis a sovereign's concern, not a spouse's, and those closest to him knew what that meant. This wasn't just personal, it was constitutional. William arrived an hour after his father, tense, angry, frustrated. He reportedly argued against any premature disclosure, warning that going public could permanently damage Louis' future and destabilize the public's already fragile trust in the monarchy. But Charles wasn't listening to caution anymore. For too long, he believed he had deferred, waited, protected. But now, with the collapse of Louis and the growing international speculation, the cost of silence had grown too high. Advisors began filing into the council chamber. The Lord Chamberlain, the private secretary, medical representatives, and most notably, the Crown's constitutional advisors, figures not seen at the table since the Queen's passing. What followed was a storm of disagreement. Legal scholars debated the line of succession if Louis were deemed medically exempt. Others raised ethical concerns about disclosing a minor's health to the public. Some argued for immediate transparency. Others warned of irreversible consequences. The room reportedly fractured along generational lines. Senior courtiers backing tradition, younger aides pleading for compassion. Then came the bombshell. A document, sealed and confidential, was presented by the palace's medical ethics advisor. It was Louis's full prognosis, comprehensive, unfiltered, and brutal. The diagnosis, the expected cognitive trajectory, the likelihood of progressive symptoms, and one phrase typed in bold beneath it all: incompatible with constitutional obligations after age 12, unless condition improves. The weight of that sentence sank into the room like a lead curtain. Charles reportedly said nothing for over a minute after reading it. Then, in a voice stripped of ceremony, he muttered, "We are out of time." The monarchy wasn't just facing a health crisis. It was confronting the fragility of its own succession plan, the optics of hiding a child's struggle, and the very real threat of public outrage if the truth was discovered too late. Charles stood, looked to his advisors, and made it clear this time they would not bury the truth. Whatever came next, they would face it head-on. While the monarchy scrambled behind closed doors, Catherine faced a nightmare. No mother is prepared for the moment she learned the full truth. She had braved 1,000 royal storms with grace, but nothing prepared her for this. As the royal physician whispered the final prognosis, Catherine reportedly gasped, staggered back, and whispered, "No, not Louis." For the first time, her royal mask shattered completely. The truth, once a shadow she could deny, had now arrived as a blunt and irreversible reality. Doctors confirmed what she had long feared, but never voiced aloud. A degenerative condition, one with a long, uncertain road ahead. A condition that would not simply affect Louis' health, but his very identity, his future, and the role the monarchy had once quietly expected him to play. The phrase that broke her wasn't clinical. It wasn't scientific, it was political. One of the attending specialists, after reading the findings, stated coldly, "His condition is incompatible with royal duties in the future." Not unsuitable, not challenging, incompatible, a word that carried the weight of exile in royal language. Catherine collapsed into tears. She was by all accounts inconsolable, not just for the fear that her son was facing a life of difficulty and uncertainty, but because she had failed to protect him from the very institution she was now imprisoned within. The palace, with all its resources and tradition, had no room for imperfection, and in that moment, Catherine realized the full price of silence. She refused to leave Louis' bedside. Doctors advised rest, staff offered support, she declined it all. Hours passed with her holding his hand, eyes swollen from crying, whispering to him not as a royal figure, but as a desperate mother trying to hold together a world collapsing in real time. There were no press briefings, no photos, no appearances, but something deeper had shifted. The firm grip Catherine had kept on her public role loosened instantly. Reports confirmed that her personal assistant reached out to her parents and to Pippa urgently. The message was chilling in its simplicity: "I need you all here." It was no longer about appearances, no longer about protocol. Catherine needed family, not for duty, but for survival. For the first time, she couldn't carry this alone, and the palace, sensing the unraveling, acted swiftly. All upcoming engagements were cancelled. Officially, it was postponement due to private matters, but insiders knew the truth. The crown was watching one of its brightest stars flicker under pressure it could no longer contain. Palace aides, once rigid with schedules and scripts, softened their tone. Orders were quietly given to keep the media distracted, to shield her as best they could. But damage had already begun to spread. Catherine's breakdown wasn't just emotional, it was symbolic. It shattered the illusion that the royal family could remain untouched by real human pain. Her tears were not for show. They were the product of years of quiet suffering, culminating in a moment no mother, royal music, or not, should ever face. But as Catherine wept in private, William made a public move that shocked the nation and divided royal supporters worldwide. The palace expected William to stay silent. He did the opposite. In a stunning ultimatum, the heir to the throne made his loyalty clear, not to the crown, but to his son, and in doing so, he ignited a constitutional firestorm that rattled even the most loyal courtiers. The turning point came less than 48 hours after Catherine's breakdown. William, having watched the woman he loved crumble under the weight of royal silence, made a decision that would fracture the core of royal protocol. In a closed-door meeting with senior aides, he issued an unthinkable command: stand down. Royal PR teams, already mobilizing with carefully crafted narratives, were told to halt every press strategy immediately. No more containment, no more diversion, no more manipulation of public optics. Either the truth about Louie would be handled with openness, or William would remove himself and his family from all royal duties indefinitely. The room fell silent. This wasn't a suggestion. It was a direct challenge to the system he was born into. The confrontation with Charles came next, and it was anything but quiet. Sources confirm that father and son clashed in one of the most explosive private meetings since the days of Diana. Charles, ever the protector of the monarchy's stability, music, pleaded for patience, for calculation, for delay, but William refused to compromise. He was no longer the obedient heir. He was a father fighting for his son's dignity, and for once, the crown's future was being rewritten not by tradition, but by fury. The situation worsened when Camilla entered the fray. In what multiple insiders described as a disastrous exchange, Camilla reportedly accused William of destabilizing the family in a time of crisis. William didn't hold back. Witnesses say the argument escalated until he stormed out, his final words ringing through the corridor: "You're not the one losing a child's future." But the most shocking twist came hours later when William reached out beyond the palace walls. He made a call that would raise eyebrows from Buckingham to California. Meghan Markle, yes, the very woman whose relationship with the monarchy had become a media war zone. William's tone was reportedly calm, deliberate, not to mend bridges, but to share solidarity. "Now I understand why you walked away," he told her. That statement alone, though private, was quickly whispered through royal channels. Behind every headline was a simple, powerful truth. William was no longer interested in maintaining the illusion of control. His family, his wife, his children, they came first. No crown, no institution, no centuries-old legacy would be allowed to come before their well-being. His public statement that followed left the world stunned. "My son comes first." Crown or not, the effect was immediate. Royal factions split. Some praised his courage, others called it betrayal. Senior advisors began contingency planning in case the Prince of Wales walked away from the line of succession altogether. And yet, William didn't waver. He stood firm, knowing that once the truth was out, the public would not question his resolve, but the silence that came before it. And as the House of Windsor teetered on the edge of institutional meltdown, an insider's leak detonated like a bombshell. It appeared online for just 12 minutes, but that was all it took. A leaked royal medical file, allegedly authentic, revealed more than anyone was ready to hear. Dates, diagnostics, coded annotations, and a word no royal ever expected to face again: inherited. The file surfaced at 3:47 a.m., uploaded anonymously to a medical whistleblower forum that was quickly overwhelmed by traffic. Within moments, It spread like wildfire across encrypted social platforms. Screenshots began appearing on Twitter, then Telegram, then mainstream newsrooms. And though royal legal teams acted swiftly to scrub the original post, the damage was already done. At the heart of the leak was a single unredacted page, clinical, precise, and devastating. It confirmed what the palace had worked tirelessly to contain. Prince Louis was battling a rare hereditary neurological disorder, one that would gradually affect motor function, cognitive clarity, and most critically, the ability to perform sustained public duties over time. It wasn't a temporary diagnosis. It was permanent, progressive, and as the document coldly noted, non-compatible with constitutional obligation beyond adolescence. But what truly shook the monarchy wasn't just the diagnosis, it was the implication. One line in the file, hidden among medical codes and clinical summaries, mentioned something called the Elizabeth Protocol, a classified royal contingency directive believed to have originated during the late Queen's reign music, meant to address scenarios where heirs or royals might face long-term medical conditions that jeopardized public trust or succession. No one outside the crown had ever seen it. Now it was global knowledge. The most haunting part, genetic markers. The leaked report didn't stop at Louie. It referenced a dormant gene carried maternally, one that might have skipped generations, gone unnoticed, hidden in silence. But now, with the advancement of modern science, it had a name, a legacy, a source, and the whispers grew loud. Had Diana unknowingly carried this gene? Was this a ghost of the past returning to haunt the House of Windsor? As if that weren't enough, attached to the file were scanned notes, handwritten, raw, deeply music, personal. Catherine's own words, scribbled during one of Louis's hospital stays, were never meant to be seen, but now they were everywhere. One sentence, in particular, captured the world's attention. "Let him live freely. Don't cage him for a title he never asked for." It was a plea, a mother's cry to shield her son, not just from disease, but from the machinery of the crown. The royal legal team scrambled into crisis mode. Letters were sent, tech platforms were threatened, but it was far too late. The screenshots were immortal. News anchors were dissecting every line. Medical experts were weighing in. Public sentiment was erupting in both rage and empathy. Some blamed the palace for hiding it. Others blamed the press for exposing it, but no one could unsee it. And inside the walls of Buckingham and Kensington, a grim reality took hold. The truth was out. The illusion was shattered, and the monarchy, cornered and exposed, was now facing a reckoning far larger than any personal grief. Now exposed and cornered, the palace had no choice but to issue one final statement, a move that would change royal history forever. At precisely 6:53 a.m., the palace released a somber 7-line statement confirming the unthinkable. For the first time in modern monarchy, the crown acknowledged a royal child's medical reality and announced Prince Louis would be stepping away from future public duties indefinitely. It was short, careful, stripped of any royal flourish, but its meaning shook the foundation of the monarchy. The message, marked by a tone of quiet finality, made no effort to soften the blow. Prince Louis would no longer be groomed for ceremonial life. His path, once mapped out by lineage and duty, would instead follow a course defined by family, health, and healing. The language was strikingly personal for a royal communiqué. It cited a deep familial commitment to privacy and healing, signaling not just a medical truth, but an emotional shift in how the palace would approach the matter. The crown was not defending a scandal. It was acknowledging a son, a child, a life too fragile to be placed in the cold mechanics of tradition. William and Catherine's names were central in the message. For once, they weren't referred to by title or position, but by role, parents. The statement confirmed they would be stepping back from public life for the foreseeable future to focus on their family. No one missed the subtext. This was not temporary. This was transformation. What followed was a tidal wave of public reaction unlike anything seen since Diana's death. Some expressed heartbreak and support, grateful for the honesty and transparency. Others criticized the years of silence, demanding to know why it had taken a leak to bring the truth into light. The monarchy, they argued, had chosen secrecy over support, image over authenticity, and now it was paying the price. But amidst the noise, one voice pierced through. A single social media post, no photo, no royal crest, just 11 words from Prince Harry. "This is why I walked away. Now, do you understand?" It was cryptic, searing, and deliberate. He didn't name names. He didn't point fingers.